As we discussed in the exam screen, you can choose to audit under the 1995 or the 1997 exam types, and Intelicode will calculate both. However, at this screen, you must make a decision as to which exam type you wish to use. If you are not using the highest coded exam, Intelicode will prompt you by stating that the current exam is not the highest coded exam. If you would like to use the highest coded exam, click Yes, otherwise click No. The end screen displays a cumulative total of all information entered for this encounter up until this time. It is advisable to double check your data to make sure that it is accurate. The Visit Information section displays a summary of information added to your audit so far. It shows information added during the patient screen, history screen, exam screen, and decision screens all in one location. This overview is key to help make sure that all information is correct and should be reviewed very carefully. The Comparisons section is where you enter additional information to see if there are any differences between the provider E&M code and the information chosen to this point by the auditor. For time-based coding, first type in the total face-to-face time spent by the provider in minutes, and then enter the amount of counseling or coordination of care time spent. You do not need to enter this information on all audits, only when counseling or coordination of care is more than 50% of the total time. If you are seeking a code that is time-based, this information is required in order for a CPT code to populate. It is recommended that you enter both face-to-face and counseling time so Intelicode can generate the appropriate code. For example, critical care coding must have both the face-to-face and counseling times in order to receive that CPT code. Next, you will enter the provider's E&M code from the list of codes provided. Simply click on the appropriate provider E&M code and it will enter the information underneath the provider section below. You will notice that when you select the provider E&M code, Intelicode will calculate the variance level and any fees or RVU differences. If there is a difference, you will see the fee schedule area calculate a dollar amount in the comparison section. Intelicode has now offered an RVU section to this comparison area and is a report option that can be selected within your report. To select your RVUs for your locality, simply click on the Management and choose a Medicare fee schedule to download. We will discuss this in a later video. Within the end screen, there are two more tabs: E&M Services and Other Services. Within the E&M Services tab, the reviewer E&M code will be selected based on the patient information, history, exam, and decision information that was entered previously. If all information was coded and entered correctly, there should be a zero fee and RVU difference. If there is a difference, the doctor has either undercoded or overcoded the E&M service. As an auditor, you may not believe that what the doctor did was medically necessary. Remember that medical necessity is the overarching criteria to determine the level of service regardless of the documentation elements. When you click on the Medical Necessity button, you will see three questions become visible. The first question asks, does the presenting problem support the level of service? If the answer to this question is yes, the other two questions are unavailable. If the first question is answered no, a second question becomes available to answer. It asks, do you want to manually override the reviewer's E&M based on the presenting problem? If you answer yes, a list of E&M codes will appear to the left. Select the appropriate code by clicking on the text. The third question is not available. If the second question is answered no, a final third question becomes available, asking if you want to base the reviewer E&M on the MDM. If you answer yes, the code in the upper right corner of the screen will change. If you answer the third question no, there will be no change. Next, begin filling out the provider E&M diagnosis codes and modifiers. Simply type the diagnosis code used by the provider when billing this audit. A list of codes will pop up for you to select from. Choose any modifiers if applicable from the drop-down list to the right. If you agree with the provider, simply click Agree, and that text field will be populated with the provider's data. Otherwise, if the doctor was not specific with his diagnosis codes, you must enter what the doctor stated for this encounter by typing the text or code number in the box shown. You cannot enter what you think the doctor meant, only what they documented. Intelicode will track this as a diagnosis coding error on your report. Continue doing so until all E&M services documented are filled out for this encounter. The Other Services tab allows you to choose for both provider and reviewer an unlimited number of procedure codes and also an unlimited number of diagnosis codes for each procedure. Begin typing the first procedure code in the white box under the Provider Procedure Code number 1. A list of procedure codes will pop up. You can then select the appropriate code. If appropriate, select a modifier by clicking on the box underneath this heading, just to the right of the Provider Procedure Code. Then select the Diagnosis Code text box just below the procedure code and begin typing in the first diagnosis code for this procedure. A list of diagnosis codes will pop up. You can then select the appropriate code. Continue doing this until you have documented all procedure codes. If you agree with the doctor's procedure codes, simply click the Agree checkbox or click the text itself. The data will populate to match the provider's data. You will need to decide if you agree with the procedure code and also if you agree with the diagnosis code. Again, if you do not agree, simply enter what the doctor stated in his documentation, and this will provide you with a diagnosis coding error on your report. Do this for both the procedure code and the diagnosis code. If you need to delete a diagnosis code or a procedure code, simply click on the blue box and it will disappear. Once all information for the documentation has been entered, you are finished with the end screen and ready to move on to the reporting options.